Jason Arnold, and we're going to have Jason Arnold out of Canada, who's going to be going through Eskrima, stick weapons defense, and I'll let him talk about that more. With all that being said, have fun, guys. Enjoy.
Oh, 53 black belt in modern arnis and Katawa Guru in Kali Silat. Teachers that influenced me heavily, obviously my brother who got me into the martial arts. I started with a local instructor, Joe Foster, who was there for probably about 15 years. And then from then on, I got an opportunity to work with Grandmaster Huck Planis for quite a while when I was over in Sweden as well as in North America. Did a lot of Kempo at IMAS school in Sweden as well. So refined my techniques there. And then, Mrs. C, or Doreen D'Arienzo, has been basically by my side the whole time. I'm currently with Kempo International, but I pretty much like to work with everybody. These teachers that I've had in Kempo, they've influenced me in different ways by the way they teach or the way they move. Like, for instance, time I spend with Francisco Vigro, when I'm doing Kempo beside him, I feel my Kempo get tighter because I know his skill level is at such a high level that I try to morph into that. So when I'm doing Filipino martial arts, I try to do it like a Filipino martial artist, not like a Kempo guy holding a stick. And that's kind of what the whole gist of today is to teach people how to use the weapon a little more functionally than just at a certain range. Through my Filipino background, Dr. Tim Hartman was and still is a huge influence on me. His teachings through Dr. G, some of the methodologies and the terminology I'll use today had an influence as well. Paul Irish and JKD, he's the one who got me cross-training and training like to fight with the stuff. Jeff Espinosa is one of my current teachers out of France. Because of COVID, I haven't been able to see anybody, so I've been pretty much a hermit, martial arts-wise. And then Virgil Cavada, he's had a big influence on my Filipino martial arts as well. So I'll use different methodologies from these people. And I just want to give a shout out to Joe Apostle and the Toronto crew for the Blunt Walk training, and obviously my training partner, Brad Fowler, and Family Karate for letting me use the space. John Marshall, great guy, always there to help out. Okay, so hopefully I covered everybody. If I didn't, I apologize. And we'll get started with, we'll start off with just the basic stuff. What I want to teach is different ways to hold the stick for a couple seconds, and then different methods of attack, and then maybe some blocks and some pros and cons of single stick versus double stick. Okay, so when it comes to the weapon, basically, yeah, different ways you can hold it. Some people say 2 fingers, some people say no finger, some people say 1 hand span, but basically you can use it from the upper case, the middle case, and the lower case. Okay, and then the different methods of execution, you can hit at a target, you can hit into a target, and you can hit through a target. So if I use Brad as a demonstration here, hopefully we got our camera at the right angle. Okay, so Brad's here, I can hit at my target, okay, I can hit into my target, and I can hit through my target. And that's pretty much the only way you can do it. And then you can use the different pieces of the stick as well, like whether you're doing a 2-hand or a baseball, whatever. Okay, all right. Blocking, you have an unbraced block, a braced block, and then you have a dos manos, which is a 2-hand block, more for like a heavy weapon. Because we have a limited amount of time, I'm going to try to cover a vast majority of different information. Okay, when I was looking at Form 7 the other day, we do a lot of open-ended triangle work, and it's all the same pattern over and over and over, which is fine. And the techniques, they have a hidden redundancy. But what's happening is that a lot of times, Kempo's at a close range system, and we're trying to do long range strikes at a close range. So sometimes you'll get into a position where it doesn't work as well as what it should. Okay. For instance, if we're doing, say, club set 1, right? I'll use use both of the sticks here. When people step back and they do the strike, you're going to notice that they break the wrist, okay? And then even when they're doing an inward block, they break the wrist, and you should stay 90 degrees, elbow anchor. So when we're doing the technique, step back, we go 1, 2, right? Keep that 90 degrees. You see a lot of people overreaching, which is okay if you're doing largo mono, but if we're doing an inward block, we don't do inward blocks like this, you're doing like this. Well, the same thing applies. So if a weapon is just an extension of the body, that means you shouldn't be extending the body out and breaking your structure, okay? So for instance, if you're doing some of the drills that we do in Blintwalk and stuff, is when we're doing a block, then we'll have the person pass the stick over top. So when you're working with your partner, I'm not too worried about, I know I said I was going to cover Form 7, but I'm going to cover concepts that will help you with understanding the forms better, okay? All right, so if we're here, what's a good angle? Yeah, okay, so in club set, I would step up back, and I would do an inward block, and then an outward block. And then I would switch, and I'd go inward, outward. I'm used to doing an open guard. I know a lot of times we do an open under triangle. There's many different ways you can do your chambers. You got double open, open and closed, double closed, on one side, over top, okay? It just depends on wherever the stick is at the time. That's the one you're gonna fight from, okay? But for this particular instance, I'm gonna go basically like our club set. So we step back, we go 1, 2, right? And then we switch, 1, 2. What you want to do with your partner to make sure that the person's in the right position, okay, is when he swings, I block first, he's going to swing, and he's going to come through with the stick, and he's going to try to tangle. Okay? So if my body isn't turned, he's going to come through, he can hit my body. So I have to turn my body. Okay. When I'm here, it comes through. Okay, so let's do it for a second. All right, so if I go here, it clears through, right? Because we're largo mono. But if we go closer and he comes through, he's going to hit me no problem. So that tells me that I have to have a better angle. Okay, so the big thing is making sure you don't break that 90-degree structure. Okay, so everybody okay with that so far? All right, then another concept that we usually do is that a stick is a hammer, okay, and a sword is a saw. So basically, all our stuff is like a hammering action. So the thing that I see is when we get to here, we got 1, 2, 1, 2, okay? That is more like a blocking set, which is good. Okay, if you're doing it inward and outward, it shouldn't have that figure 8 until you get to the next part of the form where you have the figure 8s. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to break up the techniques a little bit here. I like doing the double sticks because it does the right side, left side at the same time. Okay, and a lot of the drills that you do, like 5 swords and all those other type of techniques, they all kind of overlap. Okay, all right. Jason. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our double sticks, okay, and we're going to start from just the double open position here. Okay, so everybody good? All right, so we're doing the double open position. We're just going to do our high-low. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, everybody okay to try that for a couple times? Perfect. What I want you to do is focus on making sure you keep that structure, okay? You don't want to be like a windshield wiper, meaning that we get to here. Right? You want to make sure you hit 1, 2, 3, 4. Good clean motion. All right. And what we're doing is we're just isolating the upper body right now. I'm not doing any footwork. Okay. We're just strictly doing the upper body. All right. Everybody okay with that so far? Yeah. All right, good. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the next part, which is an open and close. So we have 1, 2, 3, right? Chamber underneath. 1, 2, 3, chamber underneath. A lot of people, they have trouble going from one side to the other, okay? So I'm going to try to teach you guys something that you can do with beginners or people that have a tough time getting to the other side. It's what we call a standard 4 from the Kali Sila, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go 1, 2, 3, stay in an open position, and then cross your center line back to the start. So 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. Everybody's okay with that? Good. Yep. All right. Good. All right. So the next part, what we'll do is we're going to carry on to the next move. What I'm going to do is kind of segue into 5 swords, which is the first move of long 7. Okay. All right. So now what we'll do is we'll add in the low line, so the retraction. Right. So we're going to go 1. Right. We're going to go low. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If we were to do the standard form, we could still get away with it. 1, 2, 3, back to the other side. Right? 1, 2, 3, back to the other side. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Yep. All right. So you're going 1, 2, 3, and then follow through. Okay. Normally you would stay in an open and closed, but when you get to the end of the 3rd beat, stay in an open position and then follow it through. That way you can stay on the right-hand side. Okay. I apologize for the sessions in the background. It's the only time I could use the dojo. So bear with me. Okay. Yep. Thumbs up. Perfect. All right. So now we're going to take it to a drill that we use for just learning how to rotate the stick. Okay. All right. You do this with little kids a lot. You sit there, you hit the stick, and you just rotate. Just like that. Okay. All right. Everybody's okay? All right. So the next move is we're going to take that same 6-count drill and we're going to add in a poke. Okay. So when we get to here, we're going to do a 1, 2, 3. We're going to do a thrust and we're going to touch. Okay. Then from there, we're going to take our own stick, hit it, twirl it, strike, which will take us into the first strike of the next move. Okay. 2, 3, thrust, rotate. 2, 3, thrust, rotate. 2, 3, thrust, rotate. 3, thrust, rotate. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Thumbs up if you are. Okay, so that's how you would start doing the rotation off of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put it into the 5 swords technique, okay? Okay, so the way I like to train the 5 swords and those techniques is through him being able to do it as well, okay? Then it's more interactive between the 2 of us. So we're going to take that same 6-count pattern that we did, and we're going to combine it right now. Okay. So, yep. All right, so he's going to come in, right? Yep. So I go 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is technically 5 swords, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to do it as a drill. So he's going to come in. I go 1, 2, 3, right? And I'm going to do my technique. You're going to do your technique. Right? 1, right? 2, 3, right? Stay open. Retraction and back again. Okay. And then when we want to get back to our other side, we're just going to go high-low and bring it back again. Okay. So we're going 1, 2, 3. Stay open. And then bring it back again. So that way we can practice doing 5 swords. Okay. And that is the 5 swords technique, and you're doing basically 5 swords against 5 swords. Do you understand? All right. So what I started doing was taking the moves from long 8 and being able to drill them together with another person, rather than just sitting there, do your form in the air over and over and over and over and over, which is cool, but you want to be able to try to functionalize it too, and be able to feel what it feels like to actually hit stuff with the stick, okay, while it's moving. I'm not really incorporating a lot of footwork today because I don't want to keep going out of the camera angle, and it's a lot more complicated when you start adding in all the switches and angle changes and stuff. I'm just trying to keep it basic to give you guys a bunch of a broader view of what you can do with the sticks. Okay. All right. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Keep it open. Right. And anytime we want to switch back to our original side, we just do our high-low shot, and that's it. Okay. All right. Now, if he has no sticks and he's going to throw the punch, and I'm going to do 5 swords. Okay. So put the sticks there. All right. This is like form 7. So he throws that hook. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. We do this. If we do this, now if anybody's into knife work or kukris or anything like that, if you take a stump of wood and you jam that live blade into there, your hand's going to go right up and through onto the blade. So the same thing, when we get into this scenario here, and we do this, that's going to hit when we hit for real, right? The force that you're coming out, you're not going to be able to get it. Now, mind you, you might be able to hook this way, and then there's where your open-ended triangle comes in and your hand switches. Do you understand? So you can do the exact same moves, but your perspective might be different based on how you look at the stick. Okay? So what I was saying earlier was that if we're a close range, if we're a close to mid-range system, because we're a checking system, if we're a checking system, that means I have to be able to use both hands, right? But the way people are striking, they're striking as if they're in long range. Do you understand what I mean? So when you're watching the technique and you're doing this, that's more like a long range. When you get in and you start checking down on those type of moves, when you get in here, that's long range, that's okay. But in here, right, you're doing a little bit of damage, but not to the maximum. What you should be doing is using the maximum. So if you're holding the stick, use your fist to do the hits, okay? Which is very common in Bull. So if I'm going to do 5 swords, I'm really not going to change the technique all that much, even if I'm holding 2 sticks. He comes in with the hook, and I go here, here, here. I could do that, but that can happen. But I can curl out this way, still punch with the stick, use the puño, and then do my finish. Right? So I find a lot of times when we're doing our techniques and stuff, we're not utilizing this. And if Kempo's known for doing hammer fists a lot, this is our hammer fist. Okay? So the idea is when he swings and I do this in here, if another punch comes, instead of trying to do this, I would use the puño to hook it out. Right? So you start using that weapon for controlling the choke points on a person. Do you understand? Right. So basically, that little twirl drill that we were doing, that's what I want you to incorporate into your 5 swords. So back up just a hair. He throws the hook. I go 1, 2, 3. Even if I do this one, that's where it comes into play. Okay, so slow it down again. 1, 2, whatever way you want to do it, right there. Boom. And don't forget, you can still off angle and hit the same way. Okay, so basically we took a basic drill like this, put it into a 6-count drill so you can work it with your partner, and then we just gave it some application. All right, good. All right. So when we get to the techniques, let's say we're doing circling destruction, for instance, okay? He throws the left this time. I go into here, I go to here, we go on top. The reason why we go on top is because just the way the technique is, we can't get our hand underneath, right? Because the stick's in the road. And part of that is you have to understand where to chamber as you're using the weapon. And that's where a weapon is an extension of the body, but some of the rules are going to change depending on the size of the weapon and the weight of the weapon and whatnot. Okay, so anyways, it comes in, I do my check, and my hit over top. Okay, and then I can hit over top this way, and then we turn around and we do this type of stuff. Okay, and it's all long range. But once again, people aren't using the hooks. So if he throws the shot, and I'm doing circle instruction. Forgot he's not a Kempo guy, so he doesn't have a cup on. Oops. All right. So if this is a hook or an anchor, and I got my 3-foot principle, right? Technically, that would be like using the puño. So if I'm supposed to be doing the technique, and I just decide to do this, it's kind of like throwing a punch like that when I do this, okay? Because my weight's going that way, and the weapon's this way, right? So if he comes in, I can block it, clear it, and check, right? Come through this way, use a double puño, right? Now you got it right where you want it. Okay? Sorry, I went out of focus there. So come over here a little bit on an angle. All right, so he throws a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use the fist. When you come through, roll it. Boom, here. Right? Just so you can see him right there. Check the leg. Finish him off. Okay? All right. Always try to take the opponent down. Don't leave him on his feet, especially, you want to do him and run. Don't want him getting up. Okay. Everybody okay with that so far? Yes? All right, good. So you can have some fun with the double sticks, but realistically, 2 sticks against a guy that's throwing a punch, Huck said it best, that's the going to jail for him. I mean, yeah, it's good for mobility and showing all the different ways you can maneuver the stick, but I just think that, there's other ways that you can practice this stuff once you know the form. So I would challenge a lot of the people online to basically start coming up with some drills, right? And then show us, and then we can bring everything up together, okay? Because if you think about it, this, he's been gone 30 years. It's our job to start really elevating stuff by creating drills to keep stuff interesting. You don't really have to stop doing Kempo. You can train in other stuff to add to your Kempo, okay? That's why I wear my Kempo uniform and pay respect to my Kempo teachers. That's my mother art. It'll always be my mother art. And I do the other training to make my Kempo better, okay? So other than that, let's see. We're gonna go to single stick now. Joe wanted to see some disarms and stuff, so I'll just show some basic disarms. And what we'll do is we'll start off with, just some quadrants. People have seen me teach the quadrants before, but I'll just do a quick review so you have an idea, okay? All right, so let's go this way. All right, so when the guy swings, it's horizontal. Because I'm in close, sometimes you catch me doing this, sometimes you catch me doing this, sometimes you catch me doing this. It depends on the situation. So first move, you grab, hit over top. Then the next one, grab in front, hit the leg because it has a nice clear path. It can travel, okay? If you have 2 sticks, it's very hard for you to get underneath unless you know what you're doing, okay? All right, so over top, underneath, right? Opposite, and then from there, come under, let your sublet. On the opposite side, gives me a backhand. Once again, over top, okay? I'm underneath, okay? I can go opposite this way, and come over here. So depending on the technique and what you want to do, it's going to determine what quadrant you take, right? So it's kind of like those what ifs. So when I practice a disarm, I'll have, say, one disarm, and then I'll work all the what ifs off the disarm. So for instance, if Brad swings and I'm going for just a basic disarm, which is control the stick, fist on the hand, punch it out. Okay, that's a basic number one moderate use disarm. Then I go to here, I go to punch it out, and the guy has a grip of death. So what I do is I hook the puño and I rip it out. Okay.
First one he did different.
If he throws the horizontal, and I go for this one, but all of a sudden my hand slips, so then I'm into my number 3 disarm. Okay. And the other one is, if I get to here, I go to do this one, and all of a sudden the stick starts to break form. Maybe my wrist wasn't perfect. Maybe he had more forward pressure, right? I would come through and hook with the puño, disarm this way. Okay. So depending on, it all depends on the energy the person gives you. Okay. And it depends on how good your structure is. And maybe they caught you off guard. You never know. But the reality is, when are you going to be carrying a stick and another guy carrying a stick, unless you're in the Philippines, right? So the idea is to practice the attributes off of this stuff to make you better at your empty hand. So from here, if Brad swings at me, now I'm going to get hit, okay? Because he's got all this centrifugal force coming in, and I'm trying to do this. It doesn't work the same way, right? So we have to get inside, and that's where our tempo techniques start to come in. Okay, so for instance, checking the storm, he's coming in horizontal this way. I check it, I kick, I land, side kick, back knuckle, right? And then I take the stick out, hopefully. Right? But if I get in tight here and pass it, I can take it out, no problem. Okay, so the idea is you want to get inside the weapon as fast as you can. Then you try to zone away from the backup weapon as quick as possible. And the disarm usually comes out pretty easy. Okay? Right. So those are some of the little tidbits of information that I use. So whenever a weapon's coming, I try to basically get to my zone of sanctuary, right? Get to a point where you're furthest away from the backup weapon, right? And then whatever comes out is based on target availability, and whatever weapon you use will be fitting the weapon to the target. So if the knee's available, might be a side kick. If the neck's available, it might be a chop. That's where the Kempo comes into play, okay? So Kempo is a great system. It has a lot of versatility in it, but when it comes to the weapon stuff, I think we got to get more drills and more live time understanding the weapon. So for you to, I'll give you an example. You can light knives, but if you make knives and you sharpen knives, you have a lot more respect for the knife, right? So when I'm doing my forms, because I use weapons, I look for, okay, so basically I can put stuff as combatic, athletic, or aesthetic, okay? And Datu Tim says this all the time, and it's true. It's that you can have moves that are very combative, but they don't look great. You can have ones that look great, but they're not combative, okay? You have ones that maybe don't have a lot of practical application, but they're very athletic. Or you can have ones that are a combination of, right? So as soon as you learn a move and you can put it in one of those circles, then it gives its value, okay? So then you don't have to worry about saying, that technique doesn't work. All you have to do is put it in one of those 3 circles, and then all of a sudden there's a positive to something that you might have said, I'm not going to look at that. So whenever I learn a technique or see something, or even watch somebody teach a technique that I've known for years, they might have a different way of explaining it. And I'm like, that's good. I could teach it that way to that person or that way to that person. Okay. So the idea is to make you a better teacher, is to try to understand putting the techniques in those. So when I look at form 7, I don't say, I hate this form. Okay. I say, okay, yep. I look at it from the Kempo perspective. And then I look at it from, okay, it's touching base on open-ended triangles, but there's so many other concepts and principles that you could be touching base on, right? But it's hard to do it in the form. So what you need to do is do it on a person and then start playing with the punyo strikes, playing with the pokes, trying to get some of those other attributes into it. And then it becomes more fun too, instead of you just randomly going through forms. Okay. Right on. Okay. All right. So basically off of the single stick, we could do a couple more ideas off of that. So if we take our techniques, I'll give you an example. Just give me a second here. I wrote down techniques that are basically sister techniques. So all the storm techniques are actually our empty hand techniques. And the reason why I like training the weapons isn't necessarily because I like using weapons, that's fun. But the idea is that if you get used to seeing sorry, camera's over here. If you get used to seeing a stick, then when you see a punch, your perceptual speed is that much more acute. So basically, you can watch a punch and it just seems slower when you're used to watching a stick. So it helps you with your timing, your perceptual speed, okay? Stuff like evading the storm is attacking mace, okay? So I'll give you an example. The way I would do like an evading the storm, just coming in with an overhead attack, right? We get into here, come over here, right? And then we do the technique. He doesn't know tempo, so I don't expect him to fall without hurting. All right, but if I was going to do the technique this way, okay? So the idea is you can throw in a little bit of a Aikido type movement into a Kempo technique, right? I used a Filipino disarm. There you go. All the systems have the same moves in them. It's just whatever you have a reference of. So someone would be like, oh, that's a Hapkido takedown. Oh, that was China. That was whatever system you're familiar with, that's going to be your reference point. But the idea is the whole premise of JKD even was to take what's useful, right, and use it to your own advantage. The thing that I don't do is I don't disregard stuff. Say a technique like Twist of Fate. Not my most favorite technique in the world, right? But I still understand it. I still teach it. I still can do it, right? Because there's somebody else that might be able to do it really well. And they might really like that technique. So there's even circling windmills, horrible, you know, everybody hates that technique, but it does have its validity depending on the situation, okay? All right, I tried to cater a little bit more to the Kempo community today just because I see on the people that are attending, it's a lot of Kempo, okay? Okay, cool. All right, so basically, we're gonna go back to double for a second just to give you guys an idea of some of the type of flows that you can work, okay? All right, so this is part of our Amara, okay? So when we get to here, we go 1, 2, 3, thrust, okay? Then we do a backhand. We do a backhand, bring it underneath our armpit, rotate, backhand, and then we go high-low to come to the side. Oh, yeah. Now, obviously, that's a more advanced type of move, but if you break it down, it's just a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a thrust. Okay, so if you guys want to practice that for a second, I'll go over it slow again. So we're going 1, 2, 2, thrust. Okay, try it again. 1, 2, 2, thrust. Okay, and again. 1, 2, 2, thrust. All right. Everybody okay with that so far? Yep. Make sure you do full range of motion too. So this is a follow through. This is a follow through until you get past the center line. Then it's another cut on the same angle. And then when you do the thrust, bring it all the way over. Don't worry about your center line because that's coming out. Okay. All right. From here, we got 1, 2, 2, thrust, backhand, backhand, chamber right underneath. We got follow through, backhand, and then high-low to get back to the original side. Okay. Once you do this, you can start on the opposite side as well. Okay. It's just to teach. It's just to teach a nice continuity of motion. So when you go boom, 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 you're just doubling it up. and then you're on the other side, right? Back there again. Okay? Is everybody okay with that so far? Yeah. So when I'm practicing my techniques, for instance, let's say I'm going to a single stick. He's going to swing at me overhead. Okay. I don't know. Let's say we're doing define the storm. So he throws the hook, right? I get to here, I get to here, right? I do the knee, I bring him back to this point here. If he goes down, I'll disarm, I'll do my hit, and then I'll practice my armor off. That way, I'm not just going, taking the stick away and doing this. Do you understand? Because when you're doing the Kempo technique, you get the stick, and then you just walk away. You might as well practice every time. Practice your movements while you're doing your cover-ups. You understand? Right. And that will make you more efficient with your weapons. Because anytime you disarm the stick and then you're doing your cover-out, you might as well be using it at the same time. Not to mention, let's say it was a multiple attacker. Pretty rare, but if it was, and let's say, I don't know, he comes in and I do this type of disarm instead, right? As I'm doing this, the guys aren't going to want to come in and mess with you if the stick's moving around at the same time, right? So, like I said, I like doing the weapons because you get more reps in at a time. So I could do 5 swords, boom, 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 1, boom, 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 2. Whereas if we're doing a Sinawali back and forth, he gets to do it. Plus I'm getting feedback at the same time as him doing it to me. So that's why I but my challenge to a lot of the Kempo community is let's start trying to find ways that we can start building on what we already know and make it more functional. Not functional as in we know the techniques work, but we want to basically find ways that we can basically train more realistic, okay, without killing each other. So when you're hitting the weapons together and stuff like that, it's a lot easier on your body. Like I'm getting closer to 50. A lot of guys that train, they get older. You can't be doing the line drills and taking the kicks and the punches and all that. So I really gravitated more towards doing the Filipino martial arts. And then I got thinking about it. I'm like, I can keep doing my Kempo. I just have to give it more of the Filipino mentality as far as drills and being able to work it back and forth and work on all the attributes of a fighter, right? Because I mean, we're not in a position in our lives every day like when you're in high school and you're going to house parties and getting in fights or whatever you're doing. Now you're older, you got family, you might work out against a tree because of COVID. We don't have training partners, right? So my goal today was just to basically give you guys an overview of all the different things that you can start thinking about. It wasn't to teach you a specific technique. It wasn't to, it was just a showcase, like Joe says, an international showcase. It wasn't for me to do a demo and show off and blast on Brad. I mean, he doesn't do Kempo, but he's a world champion kickboxer. So if you wanted to change the vibe of the session right now, it could change quite easily. But the idea is, I just wanted to give you guys an overview of thinking outside the box without leaving your box. Okay, everybody good? All right.
5 more minutes, and right after we open mics for questions.
5 more minutes?
Yeah. 5 more minutes.
Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so yeah, we'll just go through some Sinawalis if you guys want, just basic Sinawalis. Jeremy, you already know these. Okay, so we'll go from the open guard position. So everything that I do based on counts. I thought I'd come up with this, and then I seen Belton do it before, and I was like, he thinks like I do. But the first one is going to be just a 2 count. So that's what we call our single Sinawali. Okay. All right. So we're going to do this a couple times. So if you got sticks at home, right? High, low, high, low. Perfect. Okay. Then you got a 3 count. Sorry, 3 count. All right. High, low, high. Okay. Then you have 4 count, which is solo baston. We already did this earlier. All right. Then we have heaven 6. Okay. Just like so. Right. We're going 3. Then what you have is called the single hand principle, whereas the idea is from a concentration standpoint, you're not going to fight with this. You might use bits and pieces of it. It's possible, but it's to get the person into a pattern and then break the pattern and see if you can get them to be unfocused. Okay. He doesn't know when I'm going to switch. So when you're doing the Sinawali with your partner, every now and then, just go to an open guard and do the opposite direction as what the other person's going to go. It's not that hard, but it's a good coordination drill and concentration to keep the person moving. Okay? All right. That's one of the techniques that you can do. Then we're going to go on to what we call our 4 count. So there's a number 4 Sinawali. There's a 4 count and a 4 Sinawali. So the 4 count is technically the solo baston. That's a single stick drill. But because we have 2 sticks, we practice both sides. Okay? All right. 4 count is the single Sinawali or solo baston. All right. Number 4 Sinawali is from the open and closed. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. Number 5. Number 5 is the same thing. We just added the feet. Okay. So we go from the open and closed to a closed. Right. And then back out. Right. And then if we add a high backhand, that would go into another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, get the idea? All right. Then the transition to go to the low, use number 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That just gives you a little idea of some of the different things that we could do, right? If you've done modernities with Dr. Tim or myself, or a number of us modernities practitioners, that's all old school type training. If you haven't done that and you're just Kempo, that gives you a little bit of food for thought as far as, you know, category completions and stuff like that. Okay, anybody got any questions?
Just I want to add, while you guys think any questions, just I want to say, I just saw something that learning Filipino Eskrima or Silat or any stick fighting art from a particular practitioner or master in the art is one thing, but now learning for someone who got experience in both arts, it makes so much different and so much sense for employees like us to understand the weapon dynamic. So I thought I was just watching and observing, actually myself and Mr. Prasaglia, we was kind of like going over things. I think it was Arnold, great, very well explained it.
Yeah, if you guys got any specific questions, you can always get a hold of me on Facebook too, and just shoot them to me. Or if you're like, hey, I like this, could you do that again? I could do it on video and send it to you. Not a problem. As soon as you start doing it exactly the same and try to emulate everything, you become a stylist and not an artist. If we all draw a picture of a horse, I expect it to look different, right? If it all looked the same, then, you know, what's the sense? It'd be pretty boring too, wouldn't it? So the idea is to truly become an artist. But on the flip side, I've done Kempo for 38 years. I've done Filipino martial arts for over 25. And so I already had a good base in something. So don't just hop around. You got to have some type of foundation in something, and then you can play around, right? Even if you're a welder, you have the basics, then you do stainless, then you do aluminum, but you still have to have a base structure to go from, okay? Whether the base is Shotokan or judo or whatever, you got to have some idea of a base system to build off of, okay? Actually, judo is probably not the best one to say, but especially we're Filipino. But I like doing it. Anybody got any other questions? Quick shout out here. It's kind of in a child's pose. This is Brad, former world kickboxing champ, my training partner, like a brother. We've traveled all over the planet together. He's going to be coming on doing a session for probably pad work, I would imagine. We're going to do, or whatever he does. Plus, he does a regular kickboxing class on, what do you, probably 5-6 times a week. So if anybody ever wants to hop on and try his kickboxing class, even on Zoom, he does a killer workout. I know lots of longtime martial artists that complain after the class, saying that, you know, they felt like they were going to die. Don't let that scare you. You can start off at your own pace. But Joe's got a great thing going, Francisco as well. You know, let's get through this COVID thing so we can actually start getting on the floor and doing techniques with each other. That would be nice. But in the meantime, try to practice those sticks and just kind of give it a different perspective, okay?
Give me a hand, guys. Woo! Good job. Oh, excellent.